Hello, I'm Daniela. Today's video isn't a project-based video. It's more of a get-to-know me video. Today I wanted to talk about the subject of teaching. Now, teaching is a really interesting subject, and I find it really fascinating. Through the years, I've had some fabulous teachers, whether they were coaches, or grade school teachers, or even college professors. Each one of them that I found to be wonderful was not only a charming person who had so many great qualities. They were attractive, they were kind, they were warm and friendly, and not all to the same degree, but they all had a spark that drew me in. They were all passionate about what they did, whether it was elementary school teaching, and you could see the love they had for children and the excitement they had when they saw their students learning something. That was a thrill for me. I had a fourth grade teacher who was very involved with the arts. She made it her mission to put on a production with our fourth grade class of The Mikado. And it was fabulous. We learned so much about so many things during that process. I'm not sure if teachers have that freedom today with their curriculum, but I know that it was a true blessing for me. I also learned a lot from this teacher. Her name was Mrs. Gall, and she taught me so much about personal responsibility and about being precise when things had to be precise and kind of letting things go when you could let them go. She was really wonderful. The next year, I had a teacher who was the complete opposite. She was very rigid and very scheduled, and she wanted everything to be precise always. And she was phenomenal. A lot of people found her to be cold, but I thought she was just a wonderfully intelligent woman who had such high standards, and it was a real challenge to meet those standards. Her name was Dr. Scarola, and she was really pretty amazing. Through the years, I've had lots of coaches, and coaches, in my opinion, seem to have a different outtake on things. A coach seems to be your partner. You're both working to the same goal. Their criticism is more of a way to get you to make things perfect. When you have a soccer coach, they want to help you to make sure that you can make your goals. When you have a running coach, they tell you all the different things you need to know, whether it's stretching or competing or the way you lean your body or different techniques off the field. And these things were all very valuable to me. Years later, when I started working in my father's restaurant, I was taught so many different things behind the counter, in the kitchen, in the dining room, and then even inventory. And there was so much to learn. And the best way that I learned it was from people who were really good at their jobs. Sometimes there were people who didn't have the personalities you might expect, and that kind of made it all the more interesting. Characters tend to make things more interesting. I was very fortunate in life that I met a lot of people who were very generous with their time. They not only shared their techniques and their expertise with me, but I got to see how they reacted to things. They didn't know they were modeling this behavior. But I learned a lot of things that I really didn't expect. I learned about conflict resolution. I learned you don't always have to win to come out ahead. So these were techniques and different people that really impressed things upon me in my life at very important times. I really thrived when I had a teacher that created structure and gave me the opportunity to rise to the occasion. And through the years, I've tried to do that with my students, to have some kind of basis of structure, and then giving options for each student to complete the task as they see fit in their own image. So what works for me, I understand it doesn't necessarily have to work for them. There are certain things, particularly with safety precautions, where things have to be followed. Guidelines are there for a reason, and they're very strict. But there are areas where there's a lot of creativity. And just because somebody doesn't do something the way you do it, doesn't mean they're wrong, and it doesn't mean you're wrong. And you can always learn from your students. Now, the longer I worked at the restaurant, the more of a teacher I became. I started imparting different techniques that I had learned and put my own spin on to others who worked there as well. And it was very rewarding to see somebody who was starting out cooking, who by the end of the time period they were there was a really skilled chef. It was very intriguing. And that satisfaction that I got from seeing somebody learn a technique and that I had some hand in it was very, very rewarding. It really enhanced the quality of my life and gave me a little confidence, particularly in that area. Now, there are many occasions where that happened. With my own children growing up, I could see them mastering different skills, whether it was tying their own shoes, or writing, or reading, and it was very rewarding. When I was in college working in early childhood development, I could see the milestones the students had reached, particularly as they aged and matured. And it was a really rewarding experience, and that's when I knew that I formally wanted to be a teacher. Through the years, I worked teaching different things, and I found my calling, teaching different art techniques. I used to teach in studios in the Northeast, and I enjoyed that immensely, but there was a downside to that, and that was having to move my products and the class supplies to each facility. I could use supplies the studio had on hand, but ultimately there was always a little bit of a hiccup using other people's supplies. Whether I was sharing my own supplies with the students, or they were sharing their supplies, or the studio was sharing their supplies. So in 2018, I began teaching online on the platform Skillshare. Now, Skillshare was an interesting platform, and when it started, there were many creators who uploaded their content, their different videos on everything from arts to technology, all these different things. And as a student, you bought a subscription to Skillshare, and you can access any of those classes. So it was really interesting. Every night you could watch a different class, a different genre, and you could watch as many classes as you wanted. I signed up as not only a teacher for Skillshare, but a student as well, and I really enjoyed that process. It actually was a big inspiration for me for adding classes to Skillshare and adding more classes. When it was all said and done, I had over 100 classes added to Skillshare, and I was uploading classes every Friday. I found it really rewarding. I met a lot of people as my students. We interacted through messages and through comments, and to this day, I consider some my friends. It was a very rewarding experience. A few years ago, Skillshare changed their business model slightly, and it really was no longer in my interest. So I decided I wanted to devote my time to teaching online, but I went to YouTube, and I just continued to add videos. Instead of uploading once a week, I was adding videos 3 times a week. And at Christmas time, I tend to add more videos. Throughout the year, when I have a workshop or something like this online, I could add as many videos as I like, and I tend to do that. I'll do a week at a time here and there. I find the process very enjoyable. Now, my content on YouTube is different than my content that was on Skillshare. On YouTube, I tend to have a big focus on slow stitching with some creativity thrown in there and different concepts about creating things and artwork and how it affects your well-being. I find these all interact together. Some of my students from Skillshare asked if I was interested in uploading my classes to Patreon. Now, Patreon's a little bit of a different platform than Skillshare. On Skillshare, as a student, you could access any of the creators on the platform. On Patreon, you sign up for a particular creator, whether they're an artist or a tech expert, whatever the field is that they do. I signed up on Patreon as an artist. I have my teaching videos posted up there. To date, I have about 30 or 40 of them, with new ones coming each week. And I'm uploading and filming brand new classes that I'll be uploading to Patreon every month. I'm sticking with watercolor, but I also have other art techniques as well. I have bookmaking and paper arts and even some slow stitching projects. Now, I'm continuing to post on YouTube. I really enjoy this platform, and I've gotten to know so many of you. I also have a Facebook group for Stitch With Me in 2023, that year-long workshop. In that Facebook group, you can post your progress for the workshop, all the prompts that you work on, or if you have any questions or insights as well. Now, the interesting thing with the Patreon classes is through the years, I have different hairstyles, different clothing choices, and you can see the progression of my work. When I started out, I was extremely nervous and very wooden with my responses and my recording. One of the things that was so hard for me to do were these talking heads where you look into the camera with nobody around and explain what your class is going to be like. You want to keep your explanation succinct, but still give enough information that it draws the viewer in and they want to learn more. I found that to be a very difficult process. I really enjoyed the actual recording of the film and the recording of the techniques, but when it came to posing in front of a camera, that was the last thing I wanted to do. Now I'm a little bit better about it. I still tend to be a little stiff and wooden, but I think that's in my genes. The more I record, the better the videos become, so I want to thank you for being patient with me. I hope you'll consider joining me on Patreon if you're interested in learning additional techniques besides the ones I show here on YouTube. I'll include that link in the show notes. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. And I want to thank all of you who took the time to watch this video. Thank you very much.